What's up, guys, and welcome back. Today we're doing the NFC Preview and Prediction as promised. Yesterday was the AFC. Went well. A couple of controversial takes here and there. I think maybe you'll find today's takes a little bit less controversial. But still, the NFC is a very interesting conference. If I had to describe it very succinctly, I'd say that it's top heavy. It's extremely top heavy. Each of the division leaders or winners are typically quite a lot better than whatever team is behind them in second place. The conference isn't nearly as deep as the AFC is, although the NFC West is extremely deep. We'll get into that when we get into that. But the NFC, home of the defending champion, Tampa Bay Buccaneers, they seem extremely prepared to run things back this year. I'll get into that more when I get into them. But yeah, the NFC has been a bit of a roller coaster. It's very top heavy, but there are still all 16 teams that we need to get into. So let's start by going through the best division in the world, all of football, all of sports, the best division ever, everyone's favorite division, the NFC East. The NFC Beast, if you're talking to fans like me, or the NFC Least if you're talking to anybody that isn't biased. This division was the worst division in football last year, by far. Obviously, the Washington football team won the division with a whopping record of 7-9. I think things will be different this year. Obviously, there was a ton of injury problems across the board. None of the teams were really playing up to par, but that was last year. This is this year. So let's get into it. I do think, just like last year, the team that wins this division will be Washington. You can call me biased for that take, but I think objectively, Washington is the best team in this division. So I have Washington winning the division at 11-6. This team had a very good offseason. I've heard a lot of good things from even the most objective of sources saying, Washington, they had a great offseason. I think they had a great offseason last season, and it just, last year with the whole COVID season and taking a while for things to actually mesh and get going was a complete overhaul. There was no OTAs, no mini camps, no training camps last year. It was just so strange. So they were figuring things out as, they were happening. Now they've had a full year under their belt in this system, with Ron Rivera as the head coach. Now this is their second year under Rivera, their second year as the football team, and their last year as the football team. But this is a very good team that had a very good season last year and a very good offseason this year. So what has changed? Curtis Samuel was brought in, signed a 3-year, I think $45 million deal to come to Washington. I think that's a great pickup because the two areas this team was really lacking in was quarterback and wide receiver, and they addressed both of them. I'll get into the quarterback in a second, but signing Curtis Samuel, I think, really, really helps. He was college, remains at Ohio State with Terry McLaurin, the star wide receiver, best wide receiver on this roster already. And I think pairing them together creates one of the more interesting, potentially dynamic wide receiver duos in all of the NFL. So I'm very excited to see that. And then quarterback, I wanted this team to look for a long-term solution right now, but that's not the direction I went in. Maybe they didn't like any of the quarterbacks in the draft or anybody who was available in free agency that was, young and could potentially move the team forward. So Ryan Fitzpatrick was signed on a 1-year deal, and he will be the leader of this offense, leader of this team for this season. And while I'm not, stoked about it or anything like that, I do think Fitz is a good enough quarterback to get the job done on a team with this much talent, because this team has an abundance of talent all over the place. This is genuinely one of the best rosters in football, and with a better quarterback, it might be the best roster in football. Obviously, Tampa has the greatest quarterback of all time and probably the best roster, so it's a little bit tough competition there, but to me, it doesn't matter who's quarterbacking this team. As long as they have working hands and can throw the football, this team will win games. The offense will be fine. Obviously, now it has a whole new look to it. The defense is, in my opinion, the best, bar none, in all of football, and at the very least, the best defensive line. This is now the second year of Chase Young in DC, Defensive Rookie of the Year. He will continue making a name for himself as one of the best defensive players in all of football, maybe emerge as the premier defensive player. He's not even scratched the surface of his potential yet, and I just can't wait to see what happens. The rest of the defensive line is obviously insane. People like Montez Sweat on the other side, Deron Payne and Jonathan Allen on the inside, Matt Ioannidis coming back from his bicep injury, or maybe it was a tricep injury, his arm injury last year that kept him out for so long. The secondary is still just as good as ever. Kendall Fuller, proven veteran corner. William Jackson III signed in the offseason, a really good corner from Cincinnati. And then Cameron Curl, last year's 7th-round pick, who really shined at safety. He, wasn't a starter last year, but ended the year as the, bona fide stud in the backfield of the secondary. And I'm really excited to see him with a full year now as the starter, because I think Curl is just one of the studs in football at his position, and I'm really excited to see how it all plays out. So this team is insanely talented, and this division is not good. So it's a tough schedule for Washington, a first-place schedule, but I think they'll get the job done in enough games, especially in the division. Their last 5 games are all in the division, so they play one division team. I think it's the New York Giants in Week 2, from Week 1 until 13, and then weeks 14 through 18 are all in the division. I really think it's going to be an easy finish for this team to get to the playoffs, and I think that is exactly what they'll do. The number 1 team in this division, the Washington football team, or so I hope, 11-6. Second place, I got the Dallas Cowboys. I've seen a lot of people saying the Dallas Cowboys are going to win this division, and maybe, but I just don't think they're as good as Washington from top to bottom, but the Cowboys are getting all the help in the world back this year. Dak Prescott will be back from his injury. Obviously, that's a very, very, very big deal, and I think that having Dak back really makes this team, that much better, because, they had Andy Dalton and Garrett Gilbert and Ben DiNucci even last year. It was just a revolving door of really, really bad quarterbacks. But when Dak was playing last year, he was playing like the best statistical quarterback in football. He was on a historical tear to start the year before that terrible injury, and it sucked to see him go down. But I'm really excited personally. I'll say it. As much as I hate the Cowboys, I'm super excited. I'm super excited to see Dak back on the field. I'm happy for him. I'm glad that he's healed, and I hope that he plays. I hope that he's the same quarterback that he was before the injury. But the rest of this team is pretty much the same in the sense that the offense, is going to be good. They have all the talent in the world. CeeDee Lamb and Amari Cooper at wide receiver, Ezekiel Elliott at running back. Those guys don't need any introduction. Honestly, another guy I'm really excited to watch is CeeDee Lamb. He was just such a star. He's such a sharp player, even as a rookie last year. And second-year CD is going to be really fun to watch. But the main issue with this team is on defense. Their defense was historically bad last year. There's just absolutely nothing good going on there, up front or in the secondary. They did draft Micah Parsons, the linebacker out of Penn State, with their first-round selection. I just don't know how to feel about that pick. I feel like it's such a Cowboys defensive pick. You look at guys like Jalen Smith and Leighton Vander Esch. These guys have talent, but something holds them back. And I just don't really see Micah Parsons panning out for them. I don't know what it is, but I don't see it. So this defense is still going to be really bad, and I think it's going to lose this team a lot of games because you can't win every game, 40-35 in this league. Do the Cowboys have what it takes? Yes, more than almost any other team in football. But it's not a winning formula. I don't think Dak can carry the load all on his shoulders. No quarterback can. And so the Cowboys will be a good, not great team this year. I have them finishing second in the division at 10-7 and missing the playoffs on the outside looking in as the 8th seed. 10 wins might be a little bit too many for this team. I don't know yet. We don't know if Dak is going to be the same quarterback coming back from his injury. And so we'll see how it all plays out. Again, I'm rooting for him. So second place, the Cowboys. In third place, I have the New York Football Giants. This is a good team. a pretty good roster, but as long my thought process is this: as long as Daniel Jones is the quarterback of this football team, they won't go anywhere. It's really as simple as that. It's now been 2 years with Daniel Jones as the quarterback of this team, and nothing has come of it. Nothing has remotely come of it. He has insane turnover problems. He's an average thrower of the football. He's an average athlete. There's nothing special or remotely substantial about him or his game. Now, last year, obviously, they weren't exactly the best team on offense. There's not a lot of good receivers there. Evan Ingram at tight end is Evan Ingram, and Saquon Barkley was lost for the year with an ACL tear. At least now they bring in Kenny Golladay in free agency. He was a star in Detroit, and that's a really, really good pickup for the Giants, I think. And Saquon will be back from his injury. Will he be the same guy? Will he have that same level of explosiveness? I don't know. I hope so, for his sake and for the Giants' sake. But again, it's really hard to tell with guys coming off of these really, really bad injuries. So the Giants' offense is a problem. We know that already. Their defense is really solid. It was their best, unit last year by far. They have They have a lot of great talent on their defense. James Bradbury last year really emerged as one of the premier young corners in the game, and they have just a lot of good things going on that side of the ball. But in today's NFL, having an average offense and a really good defense is not a winning formula. We've seen it time and time again. It's a relic of a time gone by. And because of that, I don't think the Giants will be all that this year. And even if they had, a better quarterback than Daniel Jones, I just really don't see it with that offense. And so, yeah, the Giants, I have them at 7-10. Just a very average to below average team in third place in the NFC East. And then in last, I think this one is a bit of a given. The Philadelphia Eagles, easily the worst team in this division, the worst roster. They have, in my opinion, the worst quarterback. And they don't have anything. The way I would describe the Eagles is that they have nothing of note going on the team. It's virtually the same team as last year's, which was really bad. Obviously, they've moved on from Carson Wentz now, but they already did that last year when they said, hey, we're going to make Jalen Hurts the starter for the end of the season. And Jalen was okay. He was good. Not great. But now he has an offseason of work. He'll be the starter from day one, and I don't know what to expect. I was never a fan of the Jalen Hurts pick to begin with for the Eagles. I was never a fan of him in the NFL. I wasn't really a fan of him in college, if I'm being completely honest. And while I hope he figures it out, again, it's just something I don't see happening. It doesn't help that this team has, barely anything to help him. Zach Ertz is not even a fraction of the player he once was. Miles Sanders is a really nice running back, but, having a top 15 running back or something isn't going to make you that much better of a quarterback or make your offense that much better. And then defensively, this team is just old in the places they were once good in and bad in the places they have been consistently bad in. So up front, they're old. Their young pieces aren't very good. And then their secondary is just putrid. There's no other way to say it. They really just don't have anything good going on that side of the ball. Darius Slay is now in his second year, and he's a good corner, but is he going to carry the entire secondary on his own? That's just not going to happen. So, yeah, the Eagles in fourth place. I have them at 5-12. I think 5 wins might even be too many for this team. Not a good team at all. Easily the worst team in this division. Maybe they'll be slightly better than last year, but that bar is extremely low. So the NFC East, we got Washington in first, making the playoffs. Dallas in second, just on the outside looking in. Then the New York Giants, and then the Eagles in fourth. So on to the NFC North. So in first place, quite easily, I have the Green Bay Packers, who had one of the more tumultuous off seasons in football, probably the most tumultuous off season, all because of the Aaron Rodgers saga, fiasco, debacle, whatever you want to call it. So the Packers, last year's 1 seed in the NFC, made the title game, lost in, I don't want to say embarrassing fashion, but rather maybe head-scratching fashion to the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. they were on the goal line. They kicked the field goal instead of going for it and potentially tying the game. They lose the game. You guys know the story by now. And Aaron Rodgers, last year's MVP, was just so distraught by that complete disconnect with the rest of the team, with his coaches, with his front office. And so this entire offseason was full of holdouts and ignoring people and going this place and doing that thing, hosting Jeopardy. It's been a wild ride in the Aaron Rodgers saga. But a couple weeks ago, they finally figured it out. They said, all right, Aaron, we'll give you just one last dance. See if you can make it work. And if not, next year you're more than willing to go wherever you want to go. And so Aaron Rodgers is back for one last ride in Green Bay. And at least him and the entire Packers team are the beneficiary of playing in maybe the worst division in this conference. I think the second worst division. So they'll win this division with ease. It's, again, almost the same team as last year. They were at the risk of losing running back Aaron Jones, which would have been a big loss in my opinion, but they did re-sign him to a contract that was almost too big. But they brought back Aaron Jones. They still have Devontae Adams. They still have all those guys, and now Aaron Rodgers is back. And their defense is still very solid. I like the Packers' defense a lot. They folded when it mattered most against Tampa Bay, especially Kevin King, obviously, who was just in a padded cell that entire... Well, I don't want to say he was in a padded cell. He was just struggling in that NFC Championship game against Tampa Bay. But I like what this team has going on all around. But I just don't know if they have what it takes to get over that hump. This team has lost each of its last 4 NFC Championship game appearances since the Packers won the Super Bowl in 2010. And something is holding them back from, getting over the hump, getting over whatever it takes to make them a better team in terms of success than what they already are. Because they can be the 1 seed, they can have the MVP, but when it comes down to it, they can't even get to the Super Bowl. They can't even win a home title game. So I have the Packers at 12-5 and winning this division with ease. But when it comes down to playoff time, I'm not sure how much faith I'm going to have in them. But more on that later. Second place in this division, I have the Minnesota Vikings. Just because they are really the second best team in this division. But I don't have them finishing above 500. In fact, I have them quite below 500. I have the Vikings at 6-11. Why do I have the Vikings being so bad this year? For the same reasons that they were bad last year. Their defense is terrible. You'd expect a Mike Zimmer team to have, at least a good defense, if not a great defense. And when Mike Zimmer took over this team, they had really good defenses. But ever since, the Minneapolis Miracle, or even the year after when they lost to the 49ers in the playoffs, this defense just has not been anything worth writing home about. They haven't been anything good, really. And last year's was historically bad for Mike Zimmer. The offense is just fine, obviously. Kirk Cousins, whether you like him or not, he does get the job done. Dalvin Cook is still one of the best running backs in football. Adam Thielen is still one of the best receivers. And then Justin Jefferson was last year's, rookie surprise offensively. He was incredible. He had one of the best rookie wide receiver seasons in NFL history. So this offense is just fine. But the defense is holding them back big time. And I think this team is very similar to the Cowboys, but I like the Cowboys offense more than I like this offense. Maybe I shouldn't, but I also know that the Cowboys have it a little bit easier than the Vikings do. And for some reason, I think it's the whole... If I have to choose a quarterback, I'm choosing between Dak Prescott and Kirk Cousins. I would much rather have Dak Prescott. Kirk Cousins will lose you more games than he wins you, whereas I think Dak will, if it comes down to it, win you more games than he'll lose you. So Kirk is just not the guy, although he, like I said, he does get the job done, but this team isn't going anywhere with Kirk Cousins, let's be honest. So 6-11 for the Vikings, thanks to a very bad defense. Their offense will be fine. Stats will be accumulated. Numbers will be put up. I'm looking for another big year for Justin Jefferson, and he'll establish himself as the wide receiver 1 on that team. I think it might be time for them to move on from Adam Thielen. But yeah, it's just a lot of nothing going on in Minnesota. There's a lot of something going on, however, in Chicago, and they're my third place team in this division, also at 6-11. So this was a big season in Chicago. The Mitch Trubisky era has come to a close with a whimper. Although he did go out winning a trophy in that Nickelodeon playoff game. So no more Trubisky. He's now in Buffalo. This team signed Andy Dalton in free agency, and he was expected to be the guy, the quarterback to, I guess, lead this team, which is fine because Dalton was, I guess, okay in Dallas last year and has had a very decent NFL career. NFL career. But this team was sitting in the war room on draft night and said, you know what, maybe we don't think Andy Dalton is our guy for the future, because the Bears have a future ahead of them. They have a lot of nice young talent. They have a stellar defense. And so they said, you know what, we're not going to be sitting around being lame ducks. You know, we know maybe Aaron Rodgers is on his way out. Matt Stafford is now gone. Maybe Kirk Cousins is on his way out. We need to solidify our position with the best quarterback in this division. It's not going to be Andy Dalton. So they traded up all the way from 20 to 11 in the draft to draft Justin Fields, the star quarterback out of Ohio State. And I personally loved the move. As an Ohio State guy, I think Justin Fields is stellar. He's just that. He is a playmaker. He's dynamic. He can run the ball. He has a fantastic arm for a guy his size. He's resilient. He's tough. I could not love this move more for the Chicago Bears. It won't be his team at the start. Andy Dalton will start for this team from the get-go, but it'll be Justin's time in no time. And for that reason, I think this is the best team in the division moving forward. After Aaron leaves the Packers, and after the Vikings inevitably blow it up, this is, I think, Chicago's division in the future. Obviously not now, but this is their, development year for Fields. I think maybe late September, early October, he'll get his time to shine. They brought back Allen Robinson, which I think is huge, because if you're going to trade up for Justin Fields, you want him to have somebody to throw the ball to. And so having Allen Robinson back, I think, is massive. David Montgomery is a solid running back out of the backfield. And like I said, their defense, Khalil Mack, Eddie Jackson, Kyle Fuller, these guys are stacked across the board. So it won't be this year for Chicago, but I love the direction this team is going in, especially with Justin Fields at the helm. I can't wait to see how he performs in his rookie season. And, not this year, but the future is bright in the Windy City. So third place, 6-11, Chicago Bears. In fourth place, I have the Detroit Lions, who I think are one of the worst teams in football this year, especially record-wise. I have them at 2-15. Maybe they'll win more than 2 games. They probably will, but I mean, just on paper, I can't pick them to win more than 2 games against the schedule that they have. So this is another team in this division that had a big offseason in terms of setting up for the future. They finally let go of Matt Stafford after so long. He is now in Los Angeles with the Rams. And they got, in return, I believe it was 3 first-round picks, and Rams quarterback Jared Goff, who is like the Panera Bread of quarterbacks. So, yeah, it's a Jared Goff quarterback team now. And if you saw any of Jared Goff in Los Angeles, you know what that entails. They also moved on from key pieces like Kenny Golladay, who, like I said before, is now a member of the New York Giants, and Marvin Jones, who is now in Jacksonville. So their biggest offensive weapon now is probably TJ Hawkinson, the tight end, who is, don't get me wrong, a very good tight end. But I don't know, you can't have a team with your best offensive weapon being TJ Hawkinson. And then defensively, I just don't know what's going on here. I mean, I really don't. They also fired Matt Patricia, which is big because he was a horrible head coach. Great defensive coordinator, obviously. Multiple Super Bowls, but just a terrible head coach. And I somehow think they've downgraded by bringing in Dan Campbell, who is just like straight out of pro wrestling. I mean, not actually, but he just seems like he has a WWE personality. It's so strange talking about how we're going to take guys' kneecaps off when we're doing this. Or I saw a press conference he had at the beginning of training camp saying that seeing, his players hit other players and stuff was like arousing him and stuff like that. Like, okay, let's chill a little bit. You're a grown man coaching other grown men. I would, conduct yourself like one. So I don't know what's going on with this team. They're obviously setting themselves up for a rebuild for the future. But it's Jared Goff at quarterback, and nobody else other than T.J. Hawkinson is really noteworthy on this team. They're really bad. I have no hopes for them. I think they're just going to be in the running for the number 1 overall pick, and that's going to be the story of their season. So the Lions, in my opinion, are the worst team in the NFC, just by a smidge over a team you'll see later. One of the worst teams in football, 4th place in this division at 2-15. So the NFC North, I got Packers, Vikings, Bears, Lions, and I feel very confident about that. So on to the NFC South, the home of the defending champion Tampa Bay Buccaneers, who I have in first place in this division because duh. So the Bucs, what can I say about this team? Last year, took them a while to get going. That was the story of their season was, our roster is insanely stacked, but for some reason we can't figure it out. They were 7-5 going into their bye week. They won every game coming out of their bye week, made the playoffs, won 3 road playoff games to get to the Super Bowl, which was at home, and dismantled the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl. In Tom Brady's first year in Tampa as a 43-year-old quarterback. I mean, the storylines are just insane and all over the place with this team. And as if it couldn't get any better, they became the first team to ever return all 22 starters on both offense and defense. How can this team do anything except win the Super Bowl again this year? It doesn't make any sense. I've heard a lot of shouts about, undefeated, 17-0, this, that, and the other. But it's like I said yesterday with the Texans. There's too much parity in this league for a team to go winless or undefeated. So I don't have the Tampa Bay Buccaneers going undefeated. I have them at 15-2. And just like the Bills yesterday, if you care that much, the games I have them losing are to the Bills, actually, in Week 14, which is going to be a really interesting game to watch. And then I have them dropping a game to the Saints in Week 8 on the road, just because, the Dome is a tough environment. They've never played this team has never played in the Dome at full capacity, because last year there was no fans. And something about the Saints having the Buccaneers number last year just pushed me to, I'll give them the home game between the two games between Tampa and New Orleans. But yeah, this is the favorite in the NFL, the NFC, and the NFC South, whichever way you want to look at it. This team has no excuse to not win the Super Bowl. It's the same team as last year. They're back. They're even better. That bye week helped them, I guess, gather themselves and go on the insane run. Now they have an entire offseason of work together. They have, OTAs and now training camp and in the preseason. Tom Brady is 44 and still just playing lights out football. There's nothing more I can say about this team that you haven't heard so much already. This is the best team in football, in my opinion. The best roster in football. And they are the Super Bowl favorite. They should be the Super Bowl favorite. There's nothing stopping them from running it back. It's the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. What can I say? So, first place, Bucs, 15-2. In second place, I got the New Orleans Saints. It's the dawn of a new era in New Orleans. Drew Brees retired from the game this past year. He will be sorely missed by fans and, just the game itself, Growing up, I always loved Drew Brees. He's such a great ambassador for football, such a great guy. And I'm going to miss him. I really am. He wasn't himself at all last year. He had a lot of, I think it was rib injury problems, and it sucks that he went out the way that he did, but it was his time to go, and thus begins a new era in New Orleans. So, who is starting at quarterback for this team? We still don't know. There are two options, and both of them were on the team last year, but it's just a very strange scenario. So you have Jameis Winston, who they brought back. I think it was on a one-year deal last year. They re-signed him, which makes you believe he should be the starting quarterback. And he's more than capable of being a good starting quarterback in this league. We saw it in Tampa Bay, and I think a coaching staff and a franchise like New Orleans can help, guide him on a path that he can be the quarterback that I know he can be. But there's also Taysom Hill, who isn't really a quarterback, more of a Swiss Army knife. But when Breeze had those injury problems last year, it was Taysom Hill who was the starting quarterback for whatever reason. Sean Payton just has a strange obsession with Taysom Hill, and I don't think it'll ever be explained. But, yeah, we don't know if it'll be Winston or Hill. It should be Winston, but in any case, this team just isn't going to be as good as they were in years past. I have them at 8-9, below 500. Obviously, this team still has talent in many areas. Alvin Kamara out of the backfield is one of the premier running backs in football. Easily could have been Offensive Player of the Year last year if Derrick Henry didn't go on such a tear to end the season. Obviously, he scored 6 touchdowns on Christmas. We've never seen that before. Michael Thomas, the star wide receiver, had dealt with a ton of injury problems last year, is obviously still dealing with them now, as he recently underwent surgery on his ankle, and he's going to be sidelined for a while, so no telling when he's going to be back. There's not a lot of other good offensive pieces here, and then defensively, there's talent, but last year's defense was just getting exploited week in and week out. I mean, Teddy Bridgewater was having field days against this defense. It really didn't make any sense, and they just didn't do a lot to get better, in my opinion, and I think because of that, this is just an average at best team all across the board, and that's why I have them at 8-9. It's just average, and I think the trajectory is downward with this team. They're heading towards a rebuild. They'll probably get rid of a lot of their key pieces and move forward towards building a more solid foundation for the future. So this is the start of the decline in New Orleans, in my opinion, but they'll still finish second in this division. So 8-9. For the New Orleans Saints. In third place, I have the Carolina Panthers. So this is a team I think is extremely interesting because I like what they have going on. I really do. And I think I'm genuinely being too harsh on them. So I have the Carolina Panthers at 5-12. But I don't think this is a 5-12 football team. They just have a tough schedule. So the big story in Carolina was bringing in Sam Darnold. They traded for him from the Jets. Obviously, Darnold wasn't what the Jets wanted him to be, but something was always there. I still blame the Jets as a franchise and their coaching staff and the extreme, void of talent all across the board that never allowed Sam Darnold to flourish. Now he's in a situation where there's talent all over the place. As I stated earlier, the Panthers did let go of Curtis Samuel, who's now in Washington, but they still have plenty of good offensive pieces. Robbie Anderson is an extremely, extremely solid wide receiver, as is DJ Moore. And then Christian McCaffrey out of the backfield is the most, probably the best running back in football. Maybe not the best pure running back in football, but running the ball, catching the ball, doing everything. Christian McCaffrey's game makes him, that guy. And having him back after having injury problems last year is going to do wonders, not only for Darnold, but for the offense as a whole. Defensively, I really like what this team has going on too. Each of their last 3 first-round picks have been defensive players. Each of the last 2 have panned out in Brian Burns and Derek Brown, and then they drafted J.C. Horn 8th overall this year, the cornerback out of South Carolina, who was just rising up draft boards throughout the entire draft process en route to being the 8th overall pick. And I like what this team has going on. I really, really do. Much like Chicago and a couple other teams, I don't know if this is the year. If it's going to be any year, it might be this year or next year. But I love what this team has done. I love bringing in Sam Darnold. They obviously have Joe Brady, who made Joe Burrow who he was at LSU. I think all of the pieces are in play for Darnold to be the quarterback who we all know he can be. And if it doesn't work out, that's on him, in my opinion. So Carolina, I have them at 5-12. I think they're a better team than that. But again, when you're just picking matchups on paper this early in the season, it's hard to tell sometimes. So I do think in any case they'll finish below New Orleans, unless New Orleans just completely falls apart, in which case maybe this team can win enough games to get to second place, but still a below 500 non-playoff team. But again, I like the direction this team is heading in. So Carolina Panthers in third place at 5-12. In last place in this division, we have the Atlanta Falcons, who really just anger me. It's not like I have a dog in any of their fights, because I don't. It's the Atlanta Falcons. I really don't care. But everything this team does just makes you go, what the heck are they thinking? Last year, there were two major issues. One was the issue of choking, because, yeah, it's Atlanta, okay? They're choke artists. This is the way it is. But the way they lost so many of their games last year was just like, this has to be more than supernatural at this point. And a lot of the reason for those, late game losses were on the defense, which is terrible, still is, and on the coaching staff, which is now changed. So Dan Quinn is out as the head coach of the Atlanta Falcons. Obviously, that happened last season. This year, they brought in Arthur Smith, who was the offensive coordinator in Tennessee. And personally, I actually really like that move. I think Arthur Smith was a very good coordinator in Tennessee. Obviously, that offense has been very good in the last couple of years. And he's now going to a team with an already stacked offense. So it's Atlanta. You can always expect them to have a good offense. But their defense is just really, really bad, and they did nothing to address it. Offensively, it's the same team minus Julio Jones, who, like I said yesterday, got traded to the Titans for just a second-round pick. But Matt Ryan is still doing his thing, still putting up big numbers. Calvin Ridley is still a very, very good wide receiver. I don't know what this team has going on at running back, but I don't think it matters. And then just the most infuriating thing about this team is that they were so bad last year. They had the number 4 overall pick. They could have done anything with it to help any of the issues that they had. But they drafted Kyle Pitts 4th overall, the tight end out of Florida. And if you're still, a little bit fuzzy on all of this, yes, Kyle Pitts was a generational player at Florida. He's a generational tight end talent. He's more of a receiver than a tight end. And I do think he deserved to go that high. But for a team like Atlanta to pick a guy like that they have just no need for whatsoever, it makes no sense to me. And I think this team is just continuing to shoot itself in the foot. They have no plan for the future. Lord knows what they're going to do when Matt Ryan's time is up. 3-14 for the Falcons, in my opinion. A terrible, terrible team with a terrible, terrible defense that will lose them game after game after game. I don't see it with this team. I don't see a future with this team. I think this is going to be one of the worst teams in football for the next couple of years, and it's nobody's fault but their own. So, the NFC South, we got the Bucs, the Saints, the Panthers, and the Falcons in last place. And on to the last division in football that we are covering. The last division in the NFC. The best division in the NFC, the best division of football, not even close. Save the best for last. The NFC West. What a bloodbath this division is going to be. All 4 of these teams are stacked. Like, that's not an understatement. They're all stacked. And, yeah, it's going to be a wild ride. I can't believe we get to see all these teams play each other twice a year. All those games should be on national television. They're going to be a ton of fun. So I have the Rams in first place in this division for a couple of reasons. One is that I think they'll just have enough tiebreakers to put them above the other teams. But 2 is I think they have the best roster from top to bottom. I think San Francisco's is extremely comparable, but the Rams have a better quarterback situation going on. That's because they traded for Matt Stafford this year. They said, hey, Jared Goff, thanks for winning us the NFC that one time. That is a game we probably should have lost. Thank you for your time. We're moving on to a guy who can actually throw the ball past the sticks. So Matt Stafford, a perennial great quarterback in Detroit, is now on the best team he's ever had in Los Angeles, a team that is just stacked from top to bottom. There are no holes on this team. At least there wasn't until just a while ago when Cam Akers unfortunately went down with an Achilles injury. So it'll be a running back committee this year for Los Angeles, and it really sucks. I like Cam Akers. He had a great season last year, really proved himself, and it sucks that he went down like that. But even still, this offensive line is great. There are great receiving threats on this team, like always, and the defense needs no introduction. I mean, names like Aaron Donald and Jalen Ramsey. Darius Williams emerged as just a star in the secondary last year. So did Jordan Fuller, the rookie safety out of Ohio State. I love everything this team has going on. They're one of my favorites in the NFC. I'd say this is the second best team in the NFC, behind the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. I think they're going to lose a lot of games. Well, not a lot, but maybe a lot by their standards, just sheerly based on how difficult their schedule is. So they play a second-place schedule, but they have to play the Bucs because the Bucs finished in second behind the Saints last year. So that's very tough. And then the division itself is an extremely tough one. But I have the Rams in first place in the NFC West at 12-5. This is a really good team, and I think they have what it takes more than the others to win the division. In second place, also at 12-5. Again, like I said, with the tiebreakers, the Rams are in first place. So second place, also at 12-5, I have the Seattle Seahawks, a team I feel less strongly about, but still decent. And I honestly think I feel too good about them because I don't know if this is a 12-win football team. They got off to a really, really, really hot start last year. Obviously, Russell Wilson was the MVP through 6 to 8 weeks last year before it all kind of came crashing down. They did win this division by the skin of their teeth, but they went out with a complete whimper, losing in a really embarrassing fashion to the Rams last year in the wild card game. Just went out extremely sad. And in my opinion, the story of this year's Seattle team will be a rerun of the story of last year's team. How much can Russell Wilson do on his own? How much can Russell Wilson carry this football team? I think Russell Wilson can carry this football team plenty, but the wheels fall off eventually. We saw that last year. They fell off, in Lightning McQueen in the Piston Cup style. And he's only getting older, and the team isn't doing a lot to help him. There's still not a lot else going on in this football team. Yes, their receivers are great. DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, Russ can make me and a couple other guys I find on the street work as an NFL wide receiving tandem. But something about this football team it just isn't built to win when it matters most. I think it's a good regular season team, but not a good playoff team. And again, I think 12 wins might be a little bit generous. Maybe I'm giving Russ too much credit. Maybe I'm giving the team too much credit. But, this defense was historically bad last year. It's going to be really bad again this year. I can see them finishing with less than 12 wins. But again, it's hard to predict these things on paper before the season starts. So I do recognize them being a little generous here, but I'll stick by it. I have the Seahawks in second place at 12-5. But nothing special, in my opinion, going on with this team. Third place in the NFC West, also at 12-5. Yes, this division is that good. The San Francisco 49ers. Another team I feel really, really good about. The only thing separating San Francisco from the LA Rams, in my opinion, is the quarterback position. Because the Rams do have the better quarterback in Matt Stafford, but the story of the offseason for the 49ers was Jimmy Garoppolo and Trey Lance. So the Niners traded all the way up from 12-3 in the draft to select Trey Lance, the quarterback out of North Dakota State, who is very young, very inexperienced, very raw, but everyone, sees that he can be developed into the next star quarterback in this league, potentially the next Patrick Mahomes type of guy. And I totally think he can too, but it's not going to be his team just yet. People think maybe it'll happen at some point this season. I don't know. And I think that's the most important thing. So Jimmy Garoppolo, injured all year last year, never the quarterback, he really is. And it hurt this team big time. But I just think about the 2019 season. Jimmy Garoppolo healthy for the whole year. His best year, his most complete year. This team was very similar. Current team is very similar in terms of its makeup to that 2019 roster. Not a lot of pieces are missing. In fact, it might be a better team offensively. They went 13-3. They won the NFC, and they were 7 minutes away from winning the Super Bowl with Jimmy Garoppolo. I think if he can stay healthy for the whole year, Maybe they won't be that good, but they'll certainly be good enough to make the playoffs and certainly be one of the better teams in the NFL. People love to hate on Jimmy Garoppolo. I get it. It's easy. It's funny, etc., etc., etc. But he gets the job done, plain and simple, because the rest of this team is just that damn good. I've seen a lot of people say, oh, well, what if he gets hurt and then Trey Lance comes in and just blows up the scene? That's possible, but I do think at the moment Trey Lance is a bit too young, a bit too raw, a bit too inexperienced. He has one college start in the last 2 years. So it'll be a while for Lance, in my opinion. I'm rooting for him. I loved the move for San Francisco because obviously he will be the guy moving forward. This is the last year of Jimmy G, no matter what way you look at it. But I think if he can stay healthy for the whole year, this is a really good team with him at quarterback. Kyle Shanahan just makes it work with him. And obviously the rest of the team is just so good, on offense and defense. So I have high hopes for the 49ers this year, just hoping that Jimmy G stays healthy for long enough, or hopefully for the whole season, to get this team to where they can go. I think they're a better team than Seattle, but I have them finishing just below them on tiebreakers. So 12-5, third place, San Francisco 49ers. Fourth place, the Arizona Cardinals, who are just by default the fourth best team in this division, but if they were in any other division in this conference, they might be the best team outside of maybe, the South. So Arizona should have been a playoff team last year by all accounts. They just needed to beat the Rams, in week 17, who are starting a backup quarterback, but they went out, they completely failed, and they missed out on a playoff spot. Even before that, they had plenty of opportunities to, get to 10 or 11 wins, and they just refused to. So, what's the story this year? Well, it's pretty much the same team. The biggest addition, I'd say, was J.J. Watt, getting him from the Texans. Obviously not the player he once was, but it does add that level of pizzazz, and he still can produce on the defensive side of the ball. The offense is still super stacked, super dynamic. Kyler Murray now in his third year is just one of the most fun, exciting players, not just in today's game, but that I've ever seen at the quarterback position. Just the things he does are so awesome and incredible to watch. I'm looking forward to seeing Kyler again this year and the rest of the Arizona Cardinals because they have talent everywhere. I mean, Kenyon Drake out of the backfield is a good running back, solid. What more can you ask for? And then arguably the best wide receiver lines up on the outside in DeAndre Hopkins. The defense has a ton of nice young pieces, Byron Murphy, Budda Baker, like I said, adding J.J. Watt, having Chandler Jones already. This team has a really, really nice feel to it. The two things holding me back on this team, one is the obvious, which is they're in the best division of football, and it's going to be tough to, compete against teams that are just flat out better than them. But also, it's the third year now of Cliff Kingsbury as the head coach, and I just don't know if he's the guy. Sometimes the great college minds just don't translate over to the NFL. And that's just the way it is. Maybe he's the guy, maybe he's not. Maybe he figures it out with Kyler, maybe they don't. But in any case, this team is just too talented to screw it up again. If they do, that sucks. That's their fault. But I have the Cardinals at 10-7 and the last playoff team in the 7th seed. So, yeah, I have all 4 NFC West teams making the playoffs. I do. I think they've become the first division ever to send every team to the playoffs. And I just think it's a given because the other, second and third place teams in this conference just aren't that good. So, one last time, I have Rams, Seahawks, 49ers, Cardinals in the NFC West. The best division in football by far. And, those are the divisions. So just like yesterday, let's go through the playoff picture based on those predictions. So the 1 seed, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at 15-2. The 2 seed, I got the Green Bay Packers at 12-5. The 3 seed, the LA Rams at 12-5 as well. The 4 seed, the Washington Football Team at 11-6. The 5 seed, the Seattle Seahawks at 12-5. 6, San Francisco 49ers also at 12-5. And then, like I said, the 7 seed, Arizona Cardinals at 10-7. And again, just like yesterday, I think These are the teams. I don't see it changing. Yesterday I said maybe Miami sneaks in. I think the Miami in that regard of the NFC is Dallas, because I also have them at 10-7, just like Arizona, and they play each other this year, and I think that game kind of decides who gets in and who doesn't. But I just think Arizona is a better team across the board than Dallas is, and I feel much better about them making the playoffs than I do Dallas. So, let's briefly predict how this playoff would go, shall we? So, 2v7, Green Bay hosting Arizona. This matchup has given us so many classics in the playoffs throughout the years, but this is a rather lopsided affair in my opinion. Kyler Murray's first playoff game in frozen Lambeau Field. Just not going to happen. I'm sorry. The Cardinals, like I said, in those classics have had the benefit of playing at home. It's going to be a different story in Green Bay. The Packers would win this game by a lot. The 3v6 is Rams versus 49ers, a game I would just personally love to see, and I can't wait to see both of their games against each other this year. I think it'd be a great game that comes down to whose defense can make the stops in the right moments, and I like the San Francisco defense quite a lot, but their defense versus a Matt Stafford offense versus the Rams' stellar defense against the Jimmy G offense, I just have to go with the Rams to pull it out in that game. And they'd also be at home in front of a stacked crowd at SoFi, so I think that helps quite a lot as well. So Rams in that one. And then the 4v5 is a game straight out of my nightmares. Seattle at Washington. I've seen this team play Seattle in the playoffs so many times. It's such an inevitable playoff matchup. And ever since I was a 6-year-old kid watching the 2007 wild card game, watching us lose to Seattle in that game, and then obviously the 2012 RG3 playoff game against Seattle, which I don't want to talk about. The Seahawks are just the playoff team of my nightmares. And I don't think this game would go any different than those two would. I'd like the Seattle Seahawks to win that game. Are they a better team than Washington? No, I don't think so. However, in my opinion, there's just something to be said about a Russell Wilson versus Ryan Fitzpatrick playoff game. And that really tells me all I need to know. So, yeah. Seattle barely edges out Washington in a close one to move on to the next round. So, the divisional round. The Bucs, coming off their bye, would host said Seattle Seahawks, and I think they would wipe the floor with them because Seattle's defense is just not good, and Tampa Bay is just way too good all across the board. I don't think it'd be a close game at all. Tampa by a lot, especially coming off a bye. And then a rematch of last year's divisional with the Rams traveling to Lambeau to play the Packers. I think things would go differently this time. I think that was a close game, for the most part. And if it was anybody other than Jared Goff, who was already injured in that game, Los Angeles very well could have won that game. This team is a much better team than last year's team, in my opinion. Going up against the Packers team with, just a ton of internal dysfunction. I think there would be no more poetic way for this, Aaron Rodgers era in Green Bay to come to a close than losing a playoff game in, choke fashion, or losing a playoff game much earlier than they think they should lose a playoff game. It's just, it would suck for Aaron, and it would suck for the fans. It would suck for a lot of people, but for some reason, this is just the way I see it happening. I've seen this story too many times with the Green Bay Packers, and this is how I see it happening again, whether they like it or not. So I just, I think the Rams, hungry for revenge for last year in the same place that they had their season end last year, get the job done. They send the Packers home. Whether it's, I can see it being a late game heroics type of thing from Matt Stafford, who, has plenty of experience playing at Lambeau Field. Or maybe the Packers just choke it away like they always do. Or maybe a little bit of both. Who knows? We'll see. But it sets up for a Rams-Buccaneers NFC Championship game, which would just be insane in my opinion. Like I said, it's cool that these teams play in the regular season, and we get to see a preview of it, and it's so early too. It's in week 3, I believe. So it would be a great game. In my opinion, potentially an all-time NFC Championship game. These teams just match up so well with one another. I think the team in the NFC that matches up the best with Tampa is Los Angeles. And I think they can give them the biggest and best run for their money of any team in this conference, and maybe even in the NFL. I think it would be a game dominated by the defenses. It wouldn't be ugly per se, or even low scoring, but maybe like a 20s, mid-20s scoring type game. But the defenses would dictate the tone of the game, and while I love, what the Rams have on defense, this is the Tampa Bay Buccaneers we're talking about, and at the end of the day, it's Tom Brady against Matt Stafford in the playoffs, and I'm done picking against Tom Brady in the biggest moments. I'm more than done with that. He's proven me wrong so many times. It's made me look stupid so many times. I am done picking against Tom Brady. So I would take the Bucs, in a very, very, very close NFC Championship game against the Rams to win the NFC. Like I said, it's not very controversial. It's not a hot take by any means, but they're the best team in the league. They're going to win this conference, whether you like it or not. Tom Brady is inevitable. And those are my picks and previews for the NFC. So that sets up for my prediction of a Buccaneers-Browns Super Bowl 56 this February in Los Angeles. A really, really strange matchup on paper and to visualize. Tom Brady against Baker Mayfield in a Super Bowl. The Cleveland Browns in a Super Bowl. They've never been to a Super Bowl before. And, if I just had to keep it brief, the Buccaneers would win that game. Like I said, I'm done picking against Tom Brady. They are the best team in the league. And like I said so many times before, they have no excuse to do anything but run it back and repeat as champions. So that's a wrap. Those are my previews and predictions for the NFC. The AFC was obviously yesterday, like I said. If you missed out on that video or that article, links to both will be in the description. And I hope you guys enjoyed these long previews. I had to get it off my chest. I had to make my opinions heard. If you sat through everything, I really appreciate it, and I commend you for it. Like I said, links to everything will be down below in the description. Don't forget to push all the buttons as well. The likes, the subscribes, the shares. You know the deal. I'm super excited that football is back. I'm super stoked to be able to produce content for you guys on a consistent basis once the regular season gets underway. Multiple articles and videos a week. That's a promise. I will be putting that stuff out for you guys, and I'm super excited for it to all get underway. So I hope you guys enjoyed these previews. I hope you guys enjoy this season, and I hope you guys enjoy what I have to offer moving forward. So, take it easy, y'all.